That's all of them.
Very good, Steve. All righty, it's 5:30, so let's call this meeting to order. There is 7 out of 7 board members present. So we do have a quorum. There is no absences. And as far as I know, the only adjustment to the agenda is that I saw a comment on social media asking why action item A was before all the other ones concerned. That's a new policy, and I totally agree with that person. I think whoever possibly did the agenda just put the policies in alphabetical order. So it wasn't malicious, it wasn't planned. So I am going to move action item A to the bottom of the stack. So it will now be action item B, and all the other policies will be moved up accordingly. And so with that, the next item is the consent of the February 5th meeting minutes.
Second.
We have made the motion and Randy seconded. We did it.
Thank you.
And do we have any comments? Okay. All in favor? All opposed? And abstentions? 403 actually.
403.
Okay, so I don't know if did we actually put a sign up sheet out there? Oh, it's going to collect that for me, thanks. Everyone to sign up for this sign up sheet, did you actually want to talk during policy or did you want to talk during the actual general board meeting?
Policy.
Okay, for policy? Okay, very good. Go through the so
We gotta have a recording of that.
I know I should almost record Danny's thing and just play it.
You're right.
So okay, so participation in public guidelines. If you haven't already done so, please indicate your interest to speak on the sign up sheet. And here's a few rules that will help the process go smoothly. Speakers should review policy BEDH, public participation at board meetings, and policy AC, non-discrimination, equal opportunity, and affirmative action. Speakers are asked to identify themselves by name and town. Each speaker is limited to 30 minutes. Public comment is limited to 30 minutes with 10 speakers. The committee may vote to extend this comment period to allow more people to speak if needed. Speakers are to address questions and comments to the committee chair. The committee does not discriminate or tolerate any discrimination against students or employees on the basis of a membership of a protected class. Speakers who share comments contrary to this policy will not be permitted to continue. We will not permit profanity, shouting, or comments that disparage or attack individuals or groups. No complaints or allegations concerning any person employed by the district or students will be allowed. Requests for information or concerns that require further research will be referred to the superintendent to be addressed at a later time. If you have handouts to share, please leave them on the table where the sign-up sheet was. And the chair has the authority to stop any speaker who violates board policy, these guidelines, or the privacy rights of others. Let me get my phone here.
Just a question. When you were reading that, did you say speaker will be limited to 3 minutes or 30 minutes?
So I said the speakers are 3 minutes, but the public comment is limited to 30 minutes or 10 speakers. So, sorry if I confused that. So the first, we had one person sign up to speak, and that's Robert Smith.
Hi there, Robert Smith. I'm a parent in Waldoboro. I have 3 kids in the school system, one recent graduate. Basically I came tonight because I'm kind of like dumbfounded. So I don't know about you, but like a lot of us are sitting at home with spreadsheets on the school budgets, trying to figure out how we're going to dig ourselves out of this hole that we're in. And instead of doing that, now we're here because you guys want to say the most important thing we can do right now is talk about what's in our kids' pants. Help me understand. Like, we have school infrastructure that's falling apart and no clear vision of how we're going to get a bond through to fix it. We have spiraling costs and no idea how we're going to get a budget together that people will be able to afford and accept. We have a society, a community that is falling apart. Literally. I don't know if any of you follow the Midco scanner page, but every day, attempted suicide, overdose, froze to death. This community is falling apart. And you want to talk about whether the government is doing a good enough job policing our students' genitals.
You got 30 seconds.
I don't understand what it is that you think we're doing here. And I really just don't know what to say. Thank you.
Alrighty. Thank you. With that, we will go to the first action item, which is now action item A, policy GCF, professional staff hiring.
For our last meeting, I separated this policy and the other one and created two separate policies because we realized that we needed a different policy. And so this is the professional staff hiring, which I think you could mark, if you're comfortable with it, mark it as reviewed. And then the adoption is for the next policy, which we didn't have. And I remember there was a cross contamination. I don't know how else to say it. There was a cross wiring letters from the MSMA and what we had. So I cleaned all that up last week before I sent it to you. So I think this one's pretty straight ahead. I bet you have an edit, Naomi.
No, I don't have an edit. I have a question.
Sure.
And this might belong to a different policy, but I'm just wondering, and I think that I've asked this before, is there any place where we could stipulate perhaps that a person applying for an early childhood education position would have majored in early childhood education?
I think you could, and I would caution you to be careful to pigeonhole yourself because it's so hard to find staff now.
Yeah, I know.
So I would agree with you philosophically that I would prefer to hire someone for particularly pre-K2 that have a background, and I would even kick that up another level to literacy background. However, there's a difference between the administrators doing best practice in the hiring process and limiting them to people in a policy. So I don't disagree with the philosophical answer that you're looking for, or the question. What I would be concerned about is putting into policy anything that would pigeonhole you. Because what if you have a really brilliant person that just didn't have that one criteria? I always say, you know, in this day and age, we have to hire the smartest people that are the most likely to accept feedback and be trainable. And the truth is that the colleges are not doing a very good job. In my doctoral study, one of the major findings was that the colleges are not preparing people for literacy.
Right.
So I think it's really important that we be careful about limiting who we can hire. Just throwing that out for conversation.
Yep.
Board's decision. I wouldn't recommend restricting yourself. I would recommend having your superintendent be aware that you would prefer when possible. However, we all know that education is way more than certifications. There's an intangible relationship component that's really important. And I think that we have to also be aware that sometimes the best people, we have to trust our administrators to pick the best people for the job and then get them the support that they need to be successful.
Okay.
Rachel.
My comment was sort of in that same vein of like, I would be hesitant to put something that specific in the general policy, but I think usually when I see stuff like that, it reads something like in the posting of, you know, preference would be given to candidates with A, B, and C. I don't think that's unreasonable. I just don't know if this is the place to put those stipulations.
And before you have your comment, I just want to thank you for covering for me during the last meeting. I didn't, I know you wasn't expecting it when you sat in the chair, so I do appreciate you covering that.
I was kind of surprised to see so many people out.
Yeah, and that's what it was. It was just through attrition. So I do thank you for that.
All I was going to say was, I think within the text of this policy, basis of their merits, qualifications, and needs pretty much covers it. We are making the assumption that the administrators who will be implementing this are aware of the importance of literacy training and the specific training for early childhood education when they're hiring for those positions. But I think we want to give ourselves a little bit of like, we'll train the right candidate flexibility. I mean, we're hoping to see people come to this district work, stay there, maybe jump on a career trajectory. And so if someone, as Tom said, like checks pretty much every box except that one, it makes sense to see if it's possible to bring them on board with the expectation that if they intend to stay in those younger grades, that they will do the necessary to get themselves where we want them to be. That would, I hope, anyway.
Is this taken from the sample, essentially?
This is the original policy. The
Right.
GCFB is the new one.
I just mean we're not being given a comparison sample. So is our wording essentially the sample?
This is our wording. I didn't even get, the sample was GCF that we now made GCFB because we had a letter collide.
Okay.
Right? So I created GCF. The next policy is the new one.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. But this is a required policy, so it would lead me to believe that there is a sample policy, but we don't know.
I didn't look that up because when we had GCF, it collided. So I think we had, yeah.
Yeah, just this wording, the actual text was what we had. It just had the wrong code applied to it. So that's why there's no proposed changes or anything.
And I have no problem with going back again and looking it
No,
up again.
please.
I'm happy to do that. I just did what you all asked me to do.
I'm good.
Yeah, okay, because I'm good too. It's important to do this right.
So on that basis, I move that we like this reviewed with the necessary minor change to update the code.
And Rachel on that? Any other comments? All those in favor? Opposed? 7-0. All right, so now we'll actually go into the meat of it now with policy GCFB, which is recruiting and hiring of professional staff.
Again, this is the one in blue, the one that they were recommending. And it applies to administrative, recruiting and hiring administrative staff. From my perspective, it's a pretty standard policy. It's what I've seen everywhere I've ever been, but it's up, if you have questions, I'm happy to help you as much as I can. And if I need to get some support before the next meeting to adopt, I'm fine with that too. Just open it up to all of you.
I guess I'll ask again. Is there a reason why, and the professional staff hiring, it was very specific that, basically that people would be hired on the basis of their merits, qualifications, and the needs of the district. Where does it say that in here on the GCFB for the hiring of administrative staff?
I don't know,
What says most qualified candidate in the third paragraph? Is that what you're referring to, or?
yeah. So it says in accordance with 28 MRSA 101.13, the superintendent shall prepare a procedure designed to ensure a non-discriminatory practice in recruitment and hiring for all positions requiring administrator certification, as well as to result in the selection of the most qualified candidates. This procedure shall be attached hereto as GCFBR and shall be reviewed periodically. So that has to be developed if you adopt the policy, we have to make a GCFDR.
Okay.
And Naomi, just to be for the public, because I don't think people realize, like, when I met Leah, how many did we hire last summer? 6? I mean, we pretty much hung out all summer with Noah, right? Yeah, it was a lot. So what the key is that it starts with the posting. So the posting needs to be specific. So if you remember, you didn't fill the union principal position for a long time because of the way that the posting was written. When we changed the posting, we got good candidates. So it's incredibly important that you post it properly. Then the second step is that you review the applications based on the merit with an awareness that you may have someone that isn't quite over the line with certification, but that they're close. And we've all had to work on it. I mean, it's a grow your own environment with administration right now. The number of people who have the level of education and support required to do those jobs is diminishing rapidly. Because we're also having problems staffing teachers, which used to become the people who become administrators. So you can see, right? So one problem begets another. So it's really important when you have this procedure that you work hard to make sure that the people on the committee are a group of people that are representative of the school population for which the leader will be hired. So you want to make sure that you have, if it's a district-wide position, you want equal representation from all the buildings. If it's a building position, you want to make sure that you have equal representation from all the grades. So that when the leader is hired, there's buy-in from all the different groups that are going to be affected by that leader. And so the procedure should be very clear that there's 2 board members, maybe that if there's an assistant principal, the key players are at the table that make the decisions. I often go to the school leadership team, it's a principal, and say, could the school leadership team all be on the committee with 2 board members and the superintendent, maybe the assistant superintendent, and a special ed director, one or the other, Ashley or Penelope, assistant or director. They all have to interact with this person regularly. Honestly, Ashley and Penelope interact with them almost more than anyone else from the central office because the behaviors and the issues with students and programs, depending on the building. I will work on a procedure for this with Danielle for you all so that you have it ready for next year because you may have to do some hiring over the summer. I'll try to tee it up for you, okay? But I'm looking for feedback. Like, are those the things that you want? Like, Leah, we can model it after what we did last summer. I think it went pretty smooth last summer. Yeah, so I'll work on that for you.
I'll just add, because this policy is focused so heavily on anti-discrimination, we've certainly had policies before this committee before that have leaned heavily on that language. And when we've contemplated changing it, we've been advised by council not to do so because the language is pulled directly one way or the other from statute. And when you say, well, what if we substitute this concept for that or this word for that? That's the, opening yourself up to a world of hurt if someone chooses to take issue and go to court over it. So I think to have the statement in here that besides the requirements that non-discrimination law imposes on us, we are looking for the most qualified candidates and then having a procedure that incorporates all of those kind of high level things into a process that we follow is probably the best way to approach it.
We have a GC at P dash.
Oh, good. Okay, I'll review it.
It's 12 steps. Yeah,
Thank you.
it talks about who must be on the hiring committees, et cetera.
May not be a bad idea just to review it anyway.
I already said
No, I
my,
didn't mean, I just
Yeah,
thought
no.
that that's what we had started with and then we got into,
I want to double check it.
yeah.
It's always good to double check it, especially when you adopt a new policy in front of it.
It's a curse of the domino effect. Once you approve one policy, you always want to go
Well,
back.
It was last reviewed in December of 2022. I don't know
Yeah,
what you
it's
up
3 years
this
ago.
3 years.
3 years.
Yeah, 3 years.
Yeah, we'll do it again.
We're
It's the
ready.
same thing with the next one, the KF. We're gonna have to develop a form for that, but the form already exists. But we'll go through it, you can change all the fees and everything if you adopt it.
I would make a motion that we mark this as review.
This one you have to actually go through board to approve. It's a brand new policy. So it'll have to be a first read.
Why does it have adoption and review dates?
That's from
When it was a
the old
different
text
policy?
was under
Sorry, I'll take those
GCF.
out.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
I
I will
apologize.
send it to the board for first read.
Second.
Rachel on that? Did you have a question, Danny?
Yeah, just a word change, 1, 2, 3, 4th paragraph down.
Thank you.
last sentence, instead of school committee, it should be school board.
Thanks, Dan.
It's also the same in the last paragraph, last
Oops.
word.
Good. That's all I'm gonna say. All right, so board, I'm just changing it now, so when it goes forward to the board, it says board.
I'll add that to the motion, that we include those changes.
For those changes, absolutely. Any other comments? All those in favor? Opposed? 7-0. Next policy we're going to go over is policy KF, community use of school facility.
We had a big question last time about this. It was, took a little bit of research, but I did post the answer. In the document, I did talk to you, so I'll just kind of talk through it. I talked to the attorney and she explained that it's very tricky because if you allow the facilities to be rented by one group, you have to allow it for others. And that the, do you guys want me to just read the whole answer? It's long, but I'll read the whole thing. I don't mind. That way folks, that way you all can hear it. All right, so, I did pull some facility use forms and reviewed some of them with our attorney. And she explained that it would violate the First Amendment for us to allow access to the facilities by outside groups, but not allow religious groups to do the same. So in essence, it's all or nothing for facilities use. She also clarified that if the activity in the building is a school-based club, then it needs to be student-led with an advisor who should not be tipping the scales. The students need to have the interest in the club and the drive to create the group, and the advisor should be there as a guide for the group. If it is student-led with a staff member providing appropriate oversight but not direction for what the club will or won't do, then they can advertise the same way a chess club or other clubs can advertise. If an outside group is using the facility, they have to use the forms, and we approve those on a case-by-case basis. We can limit the building use if we believe the group violates the policy that says no school facility will be made available for any activities that are, in the opinion of the superintendent, contrary to the best interests of the RSU 40 or the welfare of its employees and or students. Also, the attorney strongly advised not modifying the above statement. The superintendent should be making the decisions on facilities use because the board would have to publicly discuss these requests every time one is made if you don't do that. That likely wouldn't be practical because these aren't always submitted that far in advance. And frankly, I've experienced that myself. And I've delegated this to Brian. Brian signs these, right? I don't read every one of them, but if there's a problem, I talk to him. Kathleen also advised that there are quite a few reasons that we don't want the board to publicly discuss outside groups, and that we may be risking claims that we've damaged a group's reputation depending on what is said. And just for the record, this is standard practice everywhere. This isn't unusual, right? This is the way it's done everywhere. So I just think it was a great question, and I did the homework. You're welcome, Rachel.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
I will, yeah.
So when we talk about what, like so a student-led club, blah, 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 right? So they can advertise their club differently than like another club that's an outside entity, right? Okay,
Yes.
so an outside entity then, whoever, gardening club that's led by parents in the community, is the gardening club allowed to, as a non-student-led club, allowed to advertise in the school newsletter? At like the bottom of the newsletter where we have information about like the schools, about whatever, because there's been times where we've gotten like, hey, also the whatever club meets on Tuesdays, but it doesn't seem like those have been student-led clubs, but they've been included in school newsletters.
I hate the answer to this.
I feel like we have something on that.
Yeah, it would surprise me if we don't have something on that, Karen. My instinct is one thing. I'd really like to double check before I say it on the camera and cause like kerfluffle.
Sure.
But I think the answer is that you shouldn't, student-led groups should be advertised and everyone else should not.
Okay.
And I hate it because I think the gardening club is awesome, right? And I don't, But once you let one, it's just like the facilities use, you have to let them all.
Absolutely.
So you want to be very careful about what you do with that. I always say to people, the rule of thumb is if it's student led and student staff managed and part of the district, great. If it's not, outside. I remember when I was a principal, I was told I couldn't let the Little League post in the entryway to the school for the bulletin board, and it made me really upset. But truly, if we let them, we had to let other outside groups, and you don't know who they could be.
Right. Well, I guess the second part of that then is like, can you include, say, like a flyer in a student's official take-home folder that all the students are getting, where like their schoolwork would go?
I would not do that.
Okay.
I would not do that.
Okay.
Only because, not because the gardening club isn't cool and safe. Like if you were running it, you know that it's the idea that what if someone else comes along that wants to do that and they're not a school related group, you can't say yes to one and not the others. And if I find out from Kathleen that I'm wrong, I'll tell you next time. But I'm 99.9999% sure that I'm right and I don't like it.
Yeah, I think it's like the how it's advertised, right? Like I agree that it's like, it's like we allow one, we allow all as long as it's appropriate, but it's like, I feel like there's a difference in the messaging to students and families of what's school affiliated versus not with how those clubs are advertised.
Right.
So
Right.
that's
That is exactly the point. Ones that are school affiliated and run by the school can go.
Okay.
The ones that aren't shouldn't. And I bet we have a policy for it, but I haven't looked it up.
thank you.
So we've got Rachel, Danny, Naomi, and then Beth.
Wow.
So that was actually my question is there a policy specific to, I feel like there is, I feel like we've already looked at it, but I'm kind of curious to have it come back around about like who leads a group and what are the stipulations and sort of the subset of the kind of the questions that we're asking. And so my other question is also hypothetically, if the garden club did send paraphernalia in home to students, does the garden club no longer get to use the facility because they wrote policy?
I think
Is
it-
there like,
so
what's
like
the process there?
well, that's a great question.
Because it's happened.
Yeah, I had a feeling.
So that's kind of like where I want to see the policy.
And again, none of this is unusual to our district or communities, right? Everyone wants to help kids and do fun things with kids. Like the one that I can think of that would be really hard for me is that really cool, the Madonna camp.
Yep.
If they wanted to put something in there saying, hey, you want to come to the Madonna camp this summer but it's but you want them to.
Right.
So the answer is that you're asking me as the superintendent, I would speak to the principal about what they allow in the flyers. I wouldn't unless it was like malicious or there was something else I don't know about, but normally the principal approves what goes in the flyers and the communication and it's hung up in the building. So I would just say to them, you got to kind of follow the rules for this.
Sure.
I'd like to find the policy though.
Yeah, and I think that's I guess where I'm mostly interested is because like I get it that you have sort of with the memorials, you'd have 9,000 flyers in the front of the school about Girl Scouts and T-ball and Boy Scouts and hunting club and like all the different things, which is great. I would love to see all these opportunities, but
Future farmers.
future farmers, yes. But it doesn't seem that it is necessarily equitable to everybody. So I don't know. I'm not gonna move tonight.
No, and I want you to know, I will look and see about.
Yeah,
the
I'm
policy,
curious about
like
that
this week.
policy.
Yep.
I feel like
Once I
good
figure
with
it
this
out, I'll
one,
just
but-
email all of you.
maybe put the other one on the agenda.
Yep. I
Thank
think that's a good idea. I'm sending myself an email so I don't forget.
Danny.
Not to get anybody mad at me, but well, first off, I apologize. I didn't look at this when it first came out. Now I'll say I don't want to get anybody mad at me, but you might want to table this policy again. Because the community policy, yeah, because on page 1, 2, 3, 4th paragraph down, it says you have policy KF-E. We have no policy KF-E.
Yes, we were going to develop that after they approve the policy. Because we have to use all the phones down below.
But if you post
That's a good
this,
point, Danny.
but if you post this and it says you have policy KF-E and then you don't have policy KF-E,
Fair enough. Okay, so can we
then
get
I'm
like
not a vote.
no, thank you. Can I ask a question?
Yep.
Can we just get a straw vote at the end of this so I know, because developing the form is a lot of work for Brian, right? Like I want to make sure all the fees change. Like if you just give me the general sense that we're good with this, I can move forward with developing KFE and get it to you for the next meeting.
Naomi.
Excuse me. I've got a question on page 3.
Okay.
Up at the top. Item, I think this would fall under item F. I've asked a long time ago, I think the first time we reviewed this policy, and I was absent last time, or I would have asked again, but I think it would be important to, on item F, include vaping materials.
Yes. Is everyone, I'll just add it, or vapes. I think that's,
Prohibited.
Yes.
Prohibited, yeah.
Yes.
We have KFE. It's.
Oh, it's not on the
Try
website.
that again, KF-E. It's a procedure and it sits under facilities on the website. I don't know why.
Does it say when it was adopted? And
I think- No, actually, it doesn't. say anything. But the only reason I looked was because I know we have a form that we use, but I was curious if it was labeled, and
You
it
won't
is
have to-
labeled
yes.
KF-E.
Won't necessarily have to reinvent the wheel, but we still have to.
I think Danny has a great point with this, and I think it's fine to table to the next meeting, but I'll have Brian go through the policy, update the form, and we'll make it a formal part of the policy because it really should be. Right, should be a procedure under the policy. So I'm good with this if you guys are. I just wanted to get, the biggest thing was the fees, the fee structure, because that drives that form and a bunch of other things, so.
And you've got vaping in there now, right?
I said use of tobacco products and vapes.
Thank you.
Should it say are? It should say are prohibited.
Okay.
And Ben,
A couple of things kind of queued up as we were going. So I feel like we could probably vote on this because there is still a first and second read process. And so if you're anticipating that the full board isn't going to want to shoehorn a bunch of changes, you could probably preset all, if not most, or most, if not all of the KE and kind of get it all teed up, ready to go as soon as. The one thing, so second side comment, we definitely do have a policy that covers advertising and sending things home to student. The code escapes me, but I'm pretty sure we talked about it earlier this year even. So that does exist. The one thing I wanted to ask that I don't think we've talked about, and that the form, this policy as we have it is kind of agnostic about, but not fully, is what stance do we take on single use versus recurring uses, events of school property, and do we need to have that in here, and if so, what stance do we want to put on it? I read this, and when I see day fees and that kind of thing, that implies a one-time use. If someone, if an outside organization wants to rent things, but it doesn't say that explicitly, and I feel like if we want to draw that line between someone who says, I want to have knitting society at your school every Sunday until people stop showing up to meetings. Versus, we want to have a knitting festival the third Saturday in March. Can we hire your gym for that occasion?
We definitely have multi-use because we have the driving school.
Okay.
I don't know how Brian has them fill that out. I mean, there's definitely an end date because I think they have periods that they, go and then stop and then start up again. I'm not sure how Brian.
Okay. I mean, if that's something that's handled procedurally, then we don't necessarily need to change this. But if it's something that we feel like needs to be made explicit somehow, either, the superintendent designee will determine the duration with the lessor or whatever. That might be something to consider. There's the big wrench in the gears. Potentially.
Great question. I feel like I need to phone a friend and call Brian Race. But I think that
I think that we could get it worked into the procedure rather than into the install.
that's what I was just thinking. But I don't like to make things up on the spot either. Like I want us to get this right. Remember I said a couple months ago, this is a big one. It's a really big deal. And it really hasn't been rewritten in a long, long time. It's been checked off and reviewed. But I think that, let me first get the question for the group is, did someone else need to comment before did you have another person saved, Rick? I don't want to usurp here. I would recommend that if you guys are good with giving me like the straw thumbs up that we're finally kind of ready with this, I can look into that and find out if that's gonna be a part of the form, or if it needs to go in the policy. And let's just do them both at the first of next month. Well, as long as it's done by the end of the year. This has been a big lift on this one, and we've had some great conversations. I've really learned a lot here and enjoyed this and thought about things from multiple angles. Super interesting how we have so many different community groups in the schools. And I think that there's nothing wrong with doing this right and giving it just a few more weeks. So I'm good with doing some research on that, Ben, if you want me to.
Okay.
Or you could move it forward. I can start preparing it, and then I can work with Brian on the form with Karen. And if that doesn't get addressed with the form, I'll email you all and bring it back up at the next meeting. I think we just do it all at the next meeting and have the form and just be ready to rock, for lack of a better term. Let's just go. But let's do it all at once, and then it goes to the board all together for the, simultaneous approval, and it'll be done by the end of April. I think we're fine.
Maybe this is where we solve our budget problems. You want to rent the gym?
$9,000.
0.5 or
do weddings.
student up for grabs.
Yep, sounds good to me. All right, do we have a
I'm
motion?
sorry.
Motion to table?
All right, I move we table this until the first policy committee meeting in April.
Sounds good.
Second.
Thank you, Ben. Who's the second?
Yeah, they're doing paper on scissors for us, so. All right, any more, comments? All those in favor of tabling it? 7-0. Okay. Pretty easy.
Thank you.
So, next action item is, which was now, action item D, AC AAA transgender and gender expansive students. And I will say this, I was the one that brought this up. And the reason why I brought this up is I hate every year or every 2 years where whoever is the controlling entity in the school board, it either gets approved or gets denied or taken away. Back and forth. Because we remember this back in 2024, where in May, it got taken away. And then an election happened. And then in August, it was brought back. And there was a lot of people that talked about how this policy was not perfect. There should be some changes made. So what I want to do as the policy chair is I want to try to find a compromise. And when I did that, I did some research. And if you haven't had a chance, Google Roe or Doe versus RSU 26. It's case law, it's state of Maine case law. And what the big dispute about that case was there was a transgender student that wanted to use a bathroom that wasn't allowed, and it went all the way up to the Maine Supreme Court. The Maine Supreme Court did side with that transgender student, but they also agreed that there should be some protections for the other children in that school. So as a result, RSU 26 revamped their policy. And if you haven't had a chance to look at RSU 26's policy, I'll share it. It's more than welcome to do that. Basically, RSU 26's policy basis says that there's a process to identify a transgender student. So that way, you just can't have Steve one day coming in a dress that may be the fairest, may not be, and just use a bathroom. So that will eliminate a lot of parents' concerns about just some stranger that's taking advantage of the law when that person may not particularly be a transgender student. So that is the big push with me trying to do this. So it's not only protecting the transgender students, but it also protects the general population as a whole, where the parents will know that there is a process to identify these students that may have, I forgot a good word for that, but if they're presenting themselves as a transgender, there is that process. The other part of the policy that a lot of parents addressed to me was the parental notification part of the key. And I'll use the example of my grandson. A couple of years ago, he goes to Warren Community School, and he went to school one day, and he's a video gamer, and he went to school one day, and he told his teacher that he wanted to be called this nickname. It was a silly nickname. But the point is that the teacher actually called me up and said, is it okay if I call your grandson this nickname? So, because how the policy is written now, if a student doesn't want the parents to know, then they're shielded. So that's the other part That's that's the other big reason. So if you ask people, because I've asked a lot of people why you want this policy taken away, those are the two big things. It's the parental notification and it's the reassurances that someone nefarious won't go into a bathroom or anything like that. With that, I will open it up for comments. Rachel. Yeah.
Thank you, by the way, for sort of setting the stage. You actually answered several of the questions that I had. I have some more. The first are actually mostly for Tom, because I think he would be the person to know the answers to these.
Hey.
Has there been a single instance in the district since this policy was reviewed and approved on 10/3/24 that has necessitated that we revisit this policy?
I don't know about prior to my time here, but I've been here since June of 2025. And
Fair.
there's not been a
Okay.
problem since I've been here,
Understood.
except I had 5 students that didn't want to be in a teacher's classroom that identified as transgender. And I told all 5 parents, you don't get to do that. And I made it very, very clear that we accept and support the people in our organization, students and staff.
Was having this policy helpful in that conversation?
Yes.
Has the Maine Human Rights Act or state law changed in any way since 10/3/24? And I know you were in New Hampshire prior, but sort of.
Yeah, no,
that's your
it has not changed.
turn.
Our attorney reviewed the draft that's been presented to you tonight and said that it's okay, but nothing has changed to precipitate that. The attorney just approved the changes in the sense that they don't violate the current statutes.
Understood, but the attorney did not ask us to make any changes or expose any vulnerabilities.
No, she said that our current policy is fine.
Understood. Okay. So I have some general questions for the committee. Some of them are sort of just hypothetical. Some of them are sort of like, you can nod your head yes or no. I'd kind of like to just read all of them as a unit. All right, during board training, board members are made aware that although they are voted in by taxpayers, their constituents are the students of the district. Have any students in the district approached you as board members? This isn't Tom. Since 10/3/24, I know some of you were not on the board at that point, but to request changes or revisions to this policy. For me, that's a no. Have any of you personally known anyone who has attempted suicide or due to feeling unsupported by their parents or guardians? I have. Happy to share those numbers, whether they're the ones who have succeeded, the ones who were left with permanent brain damage, attempts with no long-term sequelae, or all of the above. Happy to get some numbers for you. Have any of you ever been involved with making and following through with the DHHS report? What is your familiarity with the system? I've personally cared for 2 children who have died while in the care of DHHS custody despite significant advocacy efforts. The thought that DHHS is a magical solution is illogical and ill-informed. There are also times when reporting, although mandated, puts children at increased risk of harm. Curious about, we don't all know each other's backgrounds, so I might be surprised to hear some of these answers, but does anybody have any specific training or expertise in child development or mental health? I personally am a primary care pediatric nurse practitioner. I have a specialty certification in pediatric mental health. I've served as medical consultant for 2 districts, not this one, over the last 10 years. Another question, any of the committee members, also members of any organizations dedicated to the health and well-being of children? I'm a member of both the American Academy of Pediatrics and the National Association of Pediatric Nurse Practitioners. Another question, do you acknowledge that the needs of your children or grandchildren are different than mine? 10, would you also acknowledge that I understand my child's needs better than you might, and vice versa? I'm curious about what is meant by, quote, medical interventions as referenced in this policy. Regarding that, I would love to see evidence that is presented that there are, quote, medical interventions being conducted by or at RSU 40 schools or any schools in Maine. Just some thoughts that your rights end where mine begin. I acknowledge my children as sovereign individuals with insight and the ability to advocate for themselves. Yes, including my 6-year-old. I acknowledge that there may be times, situations, or circumstances that they may not feel comfortable telling me something. They have that right. They are not an extension of me. They are not my possession. They are not mine to control. They are mine to support, encourage, and guide as they build their own identities. They also have a community of other trusted adults to help do the same. I noticed that if there was a time that they felt they were scared to tell me something, those adults would help foster that conversation and work towards bringing me in when the time is right. You may be a subject matter expert on your own children or grandchildren. I am a subject matter expert on the growth, development, mental health, and experiences of thousands of children in this community. That's not an over-exaggeration. I've been asked on several occasions to testify as such in Maine courts. There are very few situations in which things are black and white. Insisting upon universal parental inclusion puts kids at risk, period. I've quoted this statement once already this year, but it seems prudent to mention it again. The way we talk to and about our children becomes their inner voice. It is our responsibility to speak about students in a way that is inclusive, supportive, and acknowledges them as individuals. It is vital to their well-being that we look past our own lived experiences, our own fears, and our own biases to put their best interests above all else. I have made suggested edits to the proposed changes that are evidence-based for the guidelines from the AAP and NAPNAP. I'll pass out copies for your review and consideration. I agree, we need policy. Nobody really likes to do this to protect. Finally, you sort of answered. I'm curious to hear from Tim as well, why this policy is put on the agenda this evening, particularly at this time when we are facing serious budget concerns, major district reorganization, administrative changes, and trying to pass a high school bond so that we continue to have an accredited high school.
I can answer those questions real quick.
Great.
I was the one to put on this, and the reason why I did it now opposed to later was because I was thinking of the well-being of Tom. I didn't want to put this on when he was in the place of the interim superintendent where there could have been that hiring. So this, again, this was my choice and my choice alone. I was the one that put it on the board. This is something that has been in the works for a while. We've had our lawyers look at this adopted policy. I do welcome your change. This is the whole purpose of this. I want to compromise. I don't want this. Because I remember when I was voted as chair, there was some people like, oh, we already know where this is going. And it's because of this. And this is why I want to avoid it. And I'm a proactive person. You know, I hate policies where we have to go back and change something because something happened. And when the last time I was on the school board, that happened, and I hate that. I like to be proactive, and that's why I wanted. And this is something I know is not going to get solved in 13 minutes, and that's fine. But I'd like us to compromise, and that way we have this, so we don't have that tit for tat, like you said. Because, like everyone else is, you know, I'm tired of wasting time on this. We need to get something that everyone can agree on, and that way it will just, you know. I hope that answers your question. That's the reason why. And I do welcome your edit because that's the whole purpose of this. And with that, we'll go to Ben.
All right. I have a sort of a different tack to take. I think it's a Murphy's Law saying that if you have a difficult task, I think if you're a lazy man, you'll find an easier way to do it. And so my thinking along these lines is just, maybe it's, you know, I appreciate that you coming to this in the spirit of compromise and trying to settle an issue that's very contentious and not likely to go anywhere anytime soon. But I wonder if it's the best idea to bring it up at this time. There are a couple of things which I would consider costs to be borne by the board if we do. First of all, it being budget season, you know, money is one of the issues that pretty much everyone in the district cares about. And I'm worried that this opening up a discussion on ASU AAA will steal some of the oxygen from that process and from those conversations. We've got some already kind of contentious things going on as part of that budget process. We have people being worried about the fate of Friendship Village School. We're asking for a bond which is a lot smaller than our previous one, but still is, you know, something that we're kind of going out to people for extra above and beyond. So it's a time when we really want to be working, I think, to bring as many members of the public on side as possible, you know, to present ourselves in the best light and to, you know, try to encourage people to come to us as collaborators in this process to improve the district. And so I'm concerned that opening this up, regardless of our intentions and processes, will be kind of stirring up the hornet's nest and sticking our collective anatomy into it if we don't really need to. I am, like I said, I do appreciate that you're coming to this in a spirit of compromise, but I'm still concerned that given how things have gone before, this could go some way to knock a leg or two out from under all the work we've done this year on building communication between members of the board, members of the administration, and members of the public, trust between the same. There's a lot of work. We put in a fair bit of time. And if I remember right, the last time we dealt with this, you know, the district staff who spoke very passionately, and they spoke on, you know, from one particular point of advocacy, and, you know, maybe felt that they weren't being listened to. So I'm worried if this comes up again, we'll see that same sort of thing start to happen. So I feel that those are kind of the costs that we have to take by bringing this up, not even necessarily by making any changes to the policy, but by opening the issue. And usually when you're considering taking a course of action, you weigh the costs, you weigh the benefits. You say, is this damage likely to be offset by achieving a goal that I want to achieve, or, you know, whatever's on the other side of that equation. And it occurs to me that what's in the calculus that probably wasn't earlier this year, and I don't know if it was when you started putting this together, the referendum question that's been, you know, signatures have been collected and turned in, that'll be on the ballot this November, I think will address a large chunk, if not every point that people in the community have been concerned about and that are covered by the proposed changes to the policy. It seems to me that given the number of signatures that were collected, the chances that it will be certified for the ballot are pretty high. And it seems to me that based on the polling, there's a pretty good chance that the question will pass. Whether I personally like that or not is immaterial. And so my question is, do we think it's worth it to take on the potential costs of making these changes, bringing the policy before the board and opening this up, when it seems like it's likely, if not certain, to accomplish a lot of those same things and keep our hands clean and keep our attention on the more nuts and bolts issues that we're dealing with right now? And why do the work to get something when you can get the same thing for nothing?
I appreciate that. Now, full disclosure, I've been working on this since September.
All right, so
So this is way before the referendum and all the wheels in motion. I just want to get this out for discussion and the need for compromise. And the reason why I did it now is I'm looking at the clock. It is March. Elections in June. I don't know which way it's going to go. But for me, and I don't know if I'm going to be sitting in this chair after June, as policy chair. So that was the reason why. But I am willing to table it until after budget season, and at least we had this conversation start. But it's one of those things where there's certain members of the community that want some kind of action on this, for good or bad.
I make a motion to table. I'm just gonna chime in.
Yep.
I've told Rick and Tim that the timing is not good for me with dealing with the bond and the budget. However, if you're willing to table it at least until we get through April, I would be really grateful, because we have to focus. The gentleman that spoke at public comment is 100% correct. From an operational perspective for the district, if you're not asking, but I'm going to tell you anyway. Shocking. You got to pass this bond. I am so worried about this high school, and it caused me to not be able to eat or sleep for 8 weeks when my wife was saying, "You can't take the job in Madomic. You can't stay there. You have to pull out," because I want to help your kids so bad. She could see it eating me alive. And she just said, "We're not doing it. We're not moving right now." So if I leave you with one thing, is to get that bond passed, I would be super grateful. However, if Rick, you're saying to the two, look, it's clear there's a lot of perspectives here. But if you're saying that you're willing to put it on the table, to table it until May, I would be really grateful. Because right now, I've got to get 9 pages of questions today for the budget. 9 pages. I wrote an answer for everything except for what I didn't know, and I tagged her and said, "Can you write it?" So she's got a lot of work to do now, and Danielle, and then it goes to the full administrative team to review. We're trying to give you an incredibly transparent budget process where every question is deeply considered and acknowledged and valued. So I just thank you, Rick, for putting it on the table that we might be able to at least get the April, get the budget passed, and then go back to this. I'd be grateful for that at least. But it's up to you all as a group, but I just felt like I needed to weigh in, like the team at the central office and the administrators are really burning the candle at both ends and the middle. Karen Pike is working nights, weekends. What did you say, Karen? You have time between 12 o'clock and 4 in the morning? If the cow doesn't wake you up and you have to give it a bath?
They don't need to worry about me.
Yeah, well, that's what you always say, Karen, but we all worry about it. So it's just a thought, right? There might be a compromise there at least to get through this next couple of months because it's going to be wild. Just throwing it up there.
Can I just say that if we choose that, the compromise and to, put it off, that we really do get to it. Because Ben mentioned about people who feel that they're not being listened to, but there are also kids who feel that they're not being listened to regarding their rights as in terms of dealing with sticky situations with transgender teachers or students. And we don't, I think they have the right to be heard as well. They may not have read a policy, but I doubt any student in the district knows or cares about policies. But I've had students come to me. Let's not turn it into an argument, Rachel.
I'm not allowed to raise my hand.
You're allowed to raise your hand, but it's probably just going to be in response to something I've said. I'm just saying, let's really do it. If we have to postpone this, let's really be sure we get to it.
So my question or sort of statement was that I remember those meetings and a lot of students did actually show up. So they did listen and read the policy. And I'm curious if that was part of my question is, have students approached you specifically and expressed concern?
Yes,
Good, thank you. That's it.
yes.
From my perspective, and I appreciate Rick trying to take all of this on himself, but I also did have a hand in this coming up right now. And to Mr. Smith, I believe your last name was, the reason that we thought this an appropriate time, again, because we need to have open lines of conversation. Bad things happen when people don't talk. These are difficult conversations. It's a hot button issue. We all know it. Nobody wanted to talk about the infrastructure when you and I ran against each other 2 years ago. Nobody wanted to talk about anything except this particular policy. That was it. Like that ruled the election. You went through it last year. It's probably going to get brought up again in June. And so we just keep battling back and forth about this. And so I thought that how we wrote this up was a good compromise because we're going to the taxpayers again and asking not only to increase the budget, but to pass a bond. And you've got half of the tax base that feels that this whole thing should just be scrapped. We shouldn't even carry it. And then you have the other half that wants it to stay as is. So instead of just rescinding and getting rid of it, we're trying to find the middle ground, and we can be the group of people that work together and lay this to rest so that we don't have to go through this every March for one town and then every June for all the rest. And we can just lay it to rest and we don't have to argue about it back and forth. And that was my hope in doing this, is that we're just trying to find the middle ground and then we can move on to other things, because this will get brought up over and over and over again if we don't deal with it as this group. And that was the hope. We're all reasonable people here. We're passionate. We all have our views on it one way or the other, but can we all just kind of meet in the middle? And it's not going to be perfect for everybody, but can it work for us as a group? So, yeah.
First, I really do appreciate the effort to revise the policy rather than moving to delete. I would argue that there was a focus on the district, the buildings, the infrastructure, all of those things before we were elected. I wasn't around for any of those things. The reason I'm sitting here is because of this policy. But I was elected essentially for the purpose of defending the rights of our transgender students. But beyond that, I care very deeply about the district. I have fully enjoyed getting to know the people that work in our district and see the amazing things that they do for our students. And that includes all of these individual communities and how much our schools impact our communities, and seeing what Brian Race and Karen have been doing over many years to try to address the needs of our buildings. So I would argue that actually the focus was probably where it was before all of us got elected. And
I wasn't saying, I was just saying as the voter base was
Okay.
focused on this. This is what everybody wanted. I'm not talking that the district is focused on this.
Thank you
but
for
the
clarifying
voter
that,
base.
because I misunderstood too. That
No,
makes a lot of
that's what I,
sense.
you know,
Thank
that's
you.
what I meant,
Yep.
that everybody, the voter base, that's
Yep.
all that everybody wanted to talk about it, not the district itself.
Thanks.
I think that's what it is.
That was helpful.
It ruled the whole thing.
When I campaigned out there talking to people, the first question was, what's the deal with this transgender stuff? That's what everybody was talking about.
Rachel.
Everybody asked me how I would have felt about the $80 million bond.
Yeah, the $2 million football field. I know that's the second question I usually get asked about. But what I will say is I will email everyone Doe versus RSU 26 and the RSU 26 policy as well. And hopefully, you know, if we do decide to table this and we come back to it, hopefully we'll have some ideas that we'll be able to really have a constructive meeting on how we can, you know, compromise and hopefully put them, you know, the nail in the coffin when it comes to this policy. So it doesn't, you know, be the boogeyman every, you know, June. And so that's what I want to avoid. And again, this policy, it protects both the transgenders and the other students that may have those concerns, and the parents that, you know, as well. So if anyone does want to make a motion for that.
Let's say something, Ken.
Oh, yes, you can.
I'm not a member of this committee, have been in the past. But I thought our purpose here was to educate kids, not worry about their sex life. I thought our whole mission as being a board member was to educate kids.
Rachel.
I'm not on the board, or I'm not on the committee, so I'm happy to speak last if there's other committee members that would like to speak, but, I think we just have to remember that we're in a constantly evolving society, and we're not in a stagnant place, right? Like, new things are constantly going to evolve, and the things that we maybe think are normal now, back in the 50s or 60s, probably seemed insane to some people, right? So we just need to continue to evolve and make sure that we are protecting all of our students, right? Which is what I think everybody wants. I actually, in reading over this policy, I think some of the changes, and I actually really appreciate Rachel's effort in adding some, what I feel like was good clarification, on some of these, adjustments on here. I think that I think we can, at this point, use this as another opportunity to showcase to our towns that as a board, we can make hard decisions, and we can have we can disagree without things getting heated, and we can come to a place where everybody is feeling at least okay about this. Because this we do personally, whether this policy exists or not, is not going to make trans kids go away, right? Like, they exist in our schools, and we need to make sure that we as a district are giving our administration, obviously, the tools to be able to keep ourselves informed and also legally protected, and so that everybody knows what to do, right? So I actually think that this is a good thing for us to be talking about, and I think that if we table it now, that probably everybody at this table right now would feel okay and should feel okay with us having this discussion later, and probably can feel committed to that, because we do need some sort of policy in place, like we just do. And having a policy doesn't mean that you believe one way or another about trans folks. It just means that we need to give everybody information to be successful in our schools. So just with the spirit of collaboration, and keeping in mind that our students' needs are constantly changing, I do think that, yeah, we should stay focused on the budget. And I would also think that tabling this would be cool for now and that we should, but that we can all be supportive and coming back with it.
And to your point, if you go into the Dominic Valley High School, locker rooms where those gang showers are, that
Yeah.
were built in the sixties.
Absolutely.
And, today's time,
So
so,
we're about to hopefully spend a bunch of money to make some of this stuff irrelevant anyways.
Right,
We're about to, so just keep that in mind, right? Like, we gotta get the bond passed and then a lot of this is gonna be
Yeah.
irrelevant.
and they
It
will.
really does
Exactly.
make a huge difference.
Absolutely.
The bathroom
So
design is
we gotta-
awesome.
Get the bond and then we can probably all take a deep breath.
Yes, Ben.
So this is probably going to sound like I've listened to everything you folks have said and I just thrown it in the trash can. I don't mean to sound disrespectful to you, Tim, to you, Rick, to you, Rachel, who all made excellent points. I am going to move that we mark this as reviewed for now, simply because I'm concerned that, well, not concerned, but I think it's likely that whatever we do, whatever grand compromise we strike, however much time we spend on it, is going to be obviated before the year is out come November. So whether the makeup of the board changes in June or not, whatever they do, whatever that iteration of the board does, is ultimately not going to matter unless what seem to be quite long odds of the November referendum failing come to pass. And so I think I'm moving to mark as review for now, simply because I think the time would be well spent in the end for, as good as the process may turn out to be. And I don't expect this effort to succeed, but that's my motion.
Can I, in 1 second, and my concern is that the November referendum and a lot of these Supreme Court hearings are all talking about Title IX, which is the boys and girls sports, and not necessarily the day-to-day operations of the school. So that's one of the reasons. But I do get your point, and we'll process your
Yeah,
motion.
my understanding is that the referendum particularly goes beyond just the Title IX question to facilities and some of these other things.
Is
I
that
could be
your, is that
mistaken.
your
That
understanding?
is my understanding.
I thought it was only sports.
Okay,
Yeah, that's what I
I
thought.
could be mistaken.
That's what I thought too. It's only well, before,
I just have a clarifying
Yes.
question. Are you motioning that we mark it reviewed with the blue changes or mark it reviewed as it stood before?
A motion to mark reviewed is to maintain it as it currently stands. Otherwise, with changes, it would have to go for a first reading
Understood.
or a table.
I just wanted to be really clear about that.
and the motion, do we have a second? Second. Any other discussions? All in favor? All opposed? Abstentions. So you voted,
In favor.
okay, so that failed 4-3. Do we have any other motions?
Table this and bring it back. I'm not sure now. Whether the other further discussions, you handed out something.
I would love, I mean,
I haven't had a chance to
Yeah.
look at all
Right,
of
and that's
them,
why-
but I see things
That was
there.
the purpose of tabling it till May.
I brought this up, not brought it up, it came around, it's gotta be 3 years ago, Melvin, 4 years ago, I don't have the date, that came sometime after the community turned in 1,000,
Well-
almost 1,000 signatures saying we don't want this.
Yeah, we
Yeah, sorry.
don't want this, and then,
Yeah.
it
My hope,
turned into a political debate, and it wasn't, we're not here for politics. None of us are here for politics. We're here for our students, whether they're transgender, whether they're gay, whether they're lesbians, it don't matter. We're here for our students.
We're running out of time, so I'm trying to get.
Table.
Am I parliamentarily allowed to make a different motion?
Yes, you
All
are.
right, I move we table this policy until, what did you suggest, Tom?
The May meeting.
May, until the
May
May
meeting.
policy
May.
committee.
first meeting and
Yep. Well, we only have one
We only
meeting.
call
So Ben made a motion to table it until the May policy meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion?
I have a comment.
Yes.
I've known you all for 10 months, and I could not be more proud of you than I am this evening. All of you. Thank you for thinking about the kids, and thank you for hearing us, that we're trying really hard. I've had probably the second best week I've had working in Atomic. The first best week was the week we did the roof, because it was just so fun. This week was the second best week because I walked into 2 buildings and principal said to me, we are committed to getting this bond passed. And we're going to put cuts and ideas on the table to help without me even asking. And you would, I'm not telling you, but you would be shocked at the collaborative nature that our team is exhibiting as a result of our leadership this year, your leadership. And you just did it in this room. And I can't tell you how grateful I am for that. I know we're not going to all leave happy, right? I'm not happy most days with some things, but I'm positive because I care about the kids. And I'm so grateful that you all this was awesome. Thank you.
So what I was saying.
So let's finish the vote first and then.
Oh, I thought we did.
No, we didn't. No.
He was
Sorry.
talking before Melvin was talking and
It
then.
doesn't
Right.
matter. I'm
So
gonna
we're gonna take up Ben's
clarity.
motion to table this to May. All those in favor? Opposed? Attention 7-0. So now,
The equity was the reason this was brought up 3, 4, 5 years ago, something like that. It was parents, the community had brought up, but that way, you know, things that some people can do and some people can't do in this group here and that group there. I had submitted some revisions to this. Instead of saying transgender students, it said any students and transgender students. So you're not carving out things like that. You passed out something. I haven't had a chance to look at it, love to look at it. What I'm going to do then is I want to send a copy of the one that I did. And mine was all strikes and underlines, same as but it can be contributed for the discussion. And I'll be
I too have. edits.
and I welcome all those edits. Please send them to me and then
Give me a
I'll.
Rick. I don't have time.
Yeah. I'm too busy with the budget.
I just want to say, if I'm going to share my edits with you, I am, in good faith. I believe that you really want to produce a policy. All of us want to produce a policy that serves our children. And so I just want to say that if it is the goal of the committee to produce a policy that assists in the educational and social integration of transgender and gender expansive students, which is how our policy is written, in our schools, and we value the involvement of the parents in that process, that the committee should work to produce a policy that prioritizes facilitating communication between the student and their parents. The importance of transgender and gender expansive students receiving support from their parents cannot be understated. Feeling loved and accepted for who you are is essential for the happiness of all humans. And in proposing this language, we should first consider if it serves to ensure the well-being of our students. So.
Parting comment for me, if we are going to kind of build our own over a collaborative process, then I think we should make sure that whatever we put together is then vetted by council.
Absolutely.
Because of the, human rights.
When Tom has a free second to breathe,
Right.
I will
In his
show
copious spare time.
our collaboration.
Yeah.
Yes, Danny.
And just remember, when Rick can send them out, but don't go emailing back and forth.
If you send something out, send it to me. I will email it to everyone, because the way to do that without having an inappropriate meeting is to send it to yourself and put BCC to anyone that you want it to go to. Then they can only reply to you. Right? And then, because it's when everyone starts emailing back and forth that you end up with an inappropriate. Right. So it's okay for me to email you anytime. And if you email me back, that's fine. But if it's CC'd and you reply all, now you've started to have an inappropriate meeting. Right? So
Well, there's
remember,
7 of us, so technically we wouldn't be having.
no, you have an unnoticed committee meeting.
Right.
And you can't do that.
Committee.
No,
Yeah,
we don't want to do any of that. I'm not participating in that. If people do that, my first response is please stop emailing everyone.
That was fun. Do we have any other items that we want to discuss for the committee?
I'd just like to say real quick, I really appreciate the respectful dialogue, everybody. I know that this is a super sensitive thing and we don't know, what we're walking into. Emotions can fly high. I'm glad we were able to keep it civil tonight and have a meaningful discussion, all of us.
Ditto.
All right. With that, it is 6:44 and